Hey, good morning, friends. Today, my friends, is Thursday, January the 15th, 2026, and the time now is 7:56 a.m. So, friends, I want to talk about Donald Trump, the United States, and the United Nations. And I want to talk specifically about the fact that just recently we got news that came out, okay, of the President of the United States, the current administration, and Donald Trump stressing that the United States is removing itself from about 60 or so, it depending on the source. Some newspapers are saying 32 UN institutions. Some are saying over 60 UN institutions. Now, friends, this video is just a brief video, and I'm going to make the original, the actual video in which I talk more. I just want to bring something quick into the discussion. If the United States removes itself from the United Nations, then it is going to backfire on the United States. Now, one reason why I think Donald Trump and the Trump administration is doing it, at least as of now, is because of what the United States and Donald Trump has been engaging in, which is one, kidnapping Maduro, bombing boats along the coast of Venezuela and throughout the Caribbean, and other things. The United States, Donald Trump, and members of the administration had been engaging in corruption, international corruption, and violating international laws. So perhaps this is the reason why they are removing the United States as of now from the United Nations, thinking that by them doing it, the UN will not hold them accountable. But also, it could be a move to punish the United Nations as a means to threaten the UN and force the UN and UN organizations and groups into doing America's bid, into subjugating itself for the United States. However, the U.S. moving itself from the United Nations is not a Donald Trump game. This is a Republican slash conservative slash members of the far right. It is their plan. Friends, for a very long time now, Republicans have been talking about the United States removing itself from the United Nations, and they've always painted the United Nations as anti-America, as an entity that wants to destroy America, even though the United States had always had leverage over the United Nations to do whatever it wants. So this is not a Donald Trump plan. It is a Republican, conservative, far-right plan. However, I do believe that the United States is going to come crawling back into the United Nations. However, friends, I also want to stress, if the United States is going to remove itself from the United Nations and given the hostility with which the United States have been treating the United Nations and members of the organization, it doesn't make sense for the United Nations to remain in the United States. But I will bet, friends, that should the United States, and when the United States finally is out of the United Nations, I will bet that when it becomes likely for members of the UN to say, look, we are out of here, when it becomes senseless for the United Nations to remain in the United States, in New York, I believe that members of the UN, even Western countries, are going to put bids for the UN headquarters to go base in their capital cities or in whatever cities. One country particular, which is not a Western country, is China. I will bet that China does have a plan to build a UN city and a UN headquarters within Beijing or within the periphery of Beijing as a means to welcome the UN. So once again, I do believe that there is a strong plan in the Chinese government to build a UN city in China, which in itself is a prestige for China. Therefore, the United States leaving the United Nations, as much as it makes Donald Trump and the US look strong, it is going to backfire because the UN being in the United States is a diplomatic, political, and geopolitical privilege for the United States, and it also gives the United States a it also gave the United States a leverage and a prestige, which the Trump administration and many Republicans, conservatives, and members of the far right are taking for granted. The UN being based in the US, in New York, gives the United States and New York a level of prestige that they are taking for granted. But I do believe it is going to backfire, and the United States will try to come back into the United Nations when it leaves. Now, friends, please tell me what you think, and I really want to know what you think. However, friends, I am going to end here. I want to thank you for being a member of the Echoing Voice community, my friends. But most especially and most importantly, or most important, friends, I want to thank you a lot for watching the Echoing Voice. Peace, my friends. Peace.